Hey, what's up? It's Cody from the Keepers of Dermot. How y'all doing? I thought today we take a break from Pokemon and actually go back to one of my favorite card games of all time, Keyforge. There's a new set coming out, I believe, towards January or so. And so we're still waiting on those. It's going to be pretty exciting. What we're going to look at today actually is a fun deck that actually is rated at 43.4%. It is not a high deck at all. Why I kept this deck is, first off, usually I keep a deck if it's got some sort of power. Or I may very well keep a deck if it is just fun or it has a unique gimmick that's interesting. And this is one of those decks that is unique and interesting. And I also like just having decks from different percentages, because then us as friends group, we can show up and go, all right, hey, what percentage do you want to play? So we can play decks that are similar in power and scale. Now, as you play Keyforge, you realize one thing. This game, even though they may be at the same power level, they may interact with a deck in a certain way that they're super strong against or super weak. So if it's a deck that has anti-stealing in it and they go up against a stealing deck, they're going to be able to trounce that. If it's a fighting deck and then they go up against a deck that has no actual fighters, they're going to, dominate that battle. But, maybe your deck, even though it's not good, it has a lot of kill cards, but then it gives you chains. Well, that's going to have a lot of power, but it's also going to hurt you in the long run. And so it's going to play differently based on your opponent. And I think that's the greatness of this game, is that it's a game where you address one another, but it's also a game where you really have to understand your deck. And that's the beauty of it. And so this 43.4% deck is the Incongruous Officer of Darkhinge. It's got the penny sleeve kind of deals on them. And now they're going up in cost with everything, so fun. It is Logos, Untamed, and Sanctum is the houses in there, and this is a fun Archon for this deck. But you can see the set list right here. That's what I love about this game as well. I've already scanned them, so I mean, you could use that QR code just to try it out for a game online, but it's not going to get you anything else past that. I believe this is Gen 4 deck, Mass Mutations, because of that set list right there, and also the blue cards tell me that they are powered up. And this is one of my favorite sets, just because the enhancements from the deck are insanely fun and weird and random. And so the cards that you may have seen before, they will have sometimes extra little things. So example right here, of course it's going to be all cards that don't actually exist in the Song of the Wild, maybe. But it's like cards that have already existed can show back up, and they can have different effects just because they have an extra ability up here, like an Amber Pip, or a Damage Pip, or a Capture Pip, or what's the other one? Nope, it's gone. I don't know. But at least those three. And so that's what's fun. And so we're going to run through this deck and exactly why it's 43.4%, some of the issues with it. We'll start with Logos. Dimension Door. For the remainder of the turn, when you play this, it's an action. Any amber you would gain from reaping is stolen from your opponent instead. So that symbol right there is for amber. This is really neat. This is a really fun card, but the ironic thing is you have to wait a turn to play this, or you already have to have stuff. In essence, you have to get stuff out, and that's what I mean by that, and wait a turn for them to be ready, and then use it the next turn. Or play it that turn because you already had stuff out the previous turn, that kind of thing. And so it's a really good card if you can keep stuff alive long enough to use it, but it also has to be Logos because you have to play Logos to use this card. Discombobulator. This creature gains your amber cannot be stolen. There's an Amber Pip. Great card to put on. Ironically, you could put this on your opponent, which would be kind of funny and not really good for you, but if you don't steal it all, then cool. Right here, we have an Amber Pip and then an enhanced Capture Pip. And it says deal 1 damage to a creature with 2 damage splash. So 1 hits and then 2 next to it get damage. This is a great card. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's really fantastic. And with the capture icon, it just goes better. Standardized Testing. Destroy each creature with the lowest power and each creature with the highest power. This is really good. This is a great card. This is a good kill card. I always thought whenever I looked at it that oftentimes with the print right here, his nose almost looks like it's part of that book or whatever thing is back there, a light or something. And so sometimes when I do a quick glance, I have to take a double take because it looks like his nose is super long, like a Pinocchio kind of thing. Opposition Research. It enhances another card, so all that means is somewhere in the deck there's a Damage Pip because of this card. Play. Enemy creatures cannot reap during your opponent's next turn. This is actually useful, but not a great card. So Titan Engineer. When Titan Engineer is not on a flank, keys cost +1 amber. Pretty good card. Pretty big boy. So unfortunately, that doesn't always work with standardized testing because he could be the target of that. Effervescent Principle. Each player loses half their amber, rounding down the loss. Game 1 chain. This can stop them from forging. Great card. Autoencoder, it's an artifact, so you get to keep it out permanently. After a card is discarded from your hand, archive the top card of your deck. And since this is a passive, it's always active, even on any other house. So if you discard a card from your hand, even if it's a different house, you get to archive the top card of your deck. This is a great card. I love this card. Group Think Tank, 4 power, 3 armor, so it has 3 protection for its health. It's an action to deal 4 damage to each creature that shares a house with at least one of its neighbors. House being this symbol up here. So if Group Think Tank is beside another Logos creature, it will hurt himself. And this often is one of those cards that's really cool, but it can actually hurt you as well if you play it wrong. So we have Bot Bookton, 4 health, and that's it. Play the top card of your deck when she reaps. So she gets an amber for reaping always, but also gets this bonus effect as well. Very good card. Unfortunately, it's just the weirdness of, does this guarantee you anything? And the answer is not necessarily, depending on what the card that you pull does. Another Discombobulator, this time with an enhancement. So an Amber Pip and a Capture enhancement. This creature gains your Amber cannot be stolen again. And Bot Bookton. So 4 health, play the top card of your deck when you reap again. One thing to note here, and I think this is partially the weakness here, there's good action cards in here for the Logos, but there's only 4 minions. There's not even half of these cards that are actual creatures. So they have a limited effect here. So we come then to the Sanctum. Lieutenant Gorvenal, 4 power, 1 armor. After you fight with a creature, Lieutenant Gorvenal captures 1 amber. So anytime you fight, regardless of house, as long as she's out, she will capture. And I say she, I just get this feeling that it's a girl. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm not really sure. I mean, the artwork doesn't really show us one way or the other, but I just have this feeling, and I don't know why. Burning Glare in amber. And it's an enhancer card, so it's enhancing something else. What's funny is when an enhancer enhances a card that's an enhancer, it just looks really funny when you're like, huh, that's weird. Wonder where that came from. And play, stun an enemy creature or stun each enemy mutant creature. This is really good, but the unfortunate thing too is the 2 Bot Booktons in, well, it's just enemy creatures, so it doesn't really affect them. So never mind. This is an okay card. It doesn't target older stuff very well because it at least stuns an enemy creature, so it can still target older things, but it's really designed to stun enemy mutant creatures. And that's just the reality of what that is. General Salvador, it enhances with 2 capture pips, and that's really why he's any good. He's a 4/2. He's not bad by stats or anything. It's just okay. Bulwark, 4 with 1 armor. Assault 2, so whenever he attacks, he deals 2 damage to the attacked creature before they even fight. And then each of Bulwark's neighbors also gains Assault 2. This is the reverse of the original Bulwark, who gives Hazardous 2. No, it's just +2 armor, which I'm way more of a fan of the original Bulwark, because this is useful, but it's situationally useful, whereas just having everything be more survivable is better. Burning Glare again. Free Markets. I love this card, but it's also one of those cards that I've seen just not do much of anything. Gain 1 amber to a maximum of 6 for each house represented among cards in play except for Sanctum. And if you're playing a 2-player game, the maximum you can ever get off this card is 5. Yeah, because you have 2 different houses other than Sanctum in your deck, and they would have to have 3 different houses than anything you have in your deck in order for this to even get 5. So it's interesting that they have a maximum of 6, because I'm guessing they were planning for the idea of you could play multiple decks against each other at the same time, which we've done, and it's fun. Eye of Judgment. This is one of the rare cards. I like this card a lot. An Amber Pip, and it has a draw card. That was the extra one. Draw card enhancement. This is fantastic. And this is an artifact, so it stays out, and it's purge a creature from a discard pile. I love this card, but it's a slow card because it's just over time that if you go up against a speedy deck, so if you got this in a really high-rated deck, fantastic card. In a low-rated deck, it's just going to slowly purge things that may be obnoxious, but because they're probably also a slow deck as well, or not as good or efficient, it's just not going to have the impact you want it to. Amberheart, the artifact, it's an action to exalt, ward, and fully heal a creature. So exalt means you put an amber on it, so if it gets killed, they get to get an amber. Warding protects them from damage and removal from the game. There are a few exceptions to that, so, and you get to fully heal a creature. Really good. 2 Amberheart Hearts, another Lieutenant Gorvanal, another General Salvador. So there's a lot of enhancement in this, and there's a Lieutenant Gorvanal with a capture pip. So there are 3 Lieutenant Gorvanals in here. If you can get them all 3 out, each one will capture an amber. And so the unfortunate thing is they become a massive target, but if you can deny for a few turns, it's hilarious. So the Sanctum is both really cool and decent, but it's also extremely dangerous. They have 6 minions in here and then 6 artifacts or actions. The unfortunate thing is the actions aren't that great because this is it, and then you have free markets. So you're kind of limited. Now the Amber Hearts and the Eye of Judgment, fantastic cards. The one bad thing is, ironically, this draw card being on an artifact means you're never going to get to play this card again unless it gets destroyed. And so it's always just going to stay out, and so that draw card's only going to happen one time, period. Now, the reason, I always love Sanctum, so I keep them often because of Sanctum, but the real reason I keep this deck is because of this right here, and I don't even like Untamed. Untamed is just not my favorite playstyle. Like the Brobnar, who are just the big goblins and trolls that whack stuff, and Untamed I just don't really care about, but there's a card in here that is fantastically fun, and it's gimmicky, and it's silly, and it's oftentimes I found myself getting screwed over by the very card that I use. And so just keep that in mind, and we'll talk about it. So Savage Clash, it's an action to play, destroy each creature except the most powerful enemy creature and the least powerful friendly creature. This again is one of those cards that it's just too dangerous, and you can still leave out a massive powerful target, especially with some of the double cards, because they get to keep their biggest creature. Not my favorite card. Damage pip on this, which is good. Hey, there's where that draw card's coming from. That's fun. Play, return a creature from your discard pile to your hand. If that creature is a mutant, return another creature from your discard pile to your hand. Love this card. It's a little bit more of a long-term type card, but it's fantastic. It's just fun because then you get to resurrect the things that you need. And if the first one was a mutant, which unfortunately for the Sanctum, only the Bulwark is an actual mutant. So it says Mutant Knight right underneath creature right here. And so it's got a pretty limited scope there. Bot Booktons are the other ones over on the other side. So there's just not a whole lot of mutants in this deck. So even though this is a really cool card, it's probably just going to resurrect you 1, maybe 2 occasionally. Song of the Wild action. For the remainder of the turn, each friendly creature gains Reap, gain 1 Amber. So it could gain 2 if you Reap, because you always gain 1 Amber normally. And so this is actually a really cool card, but again, it's waiting for your creatures to come up. And so Reclaim by Nature, Amber Pip, Purge an artifact, resolve its bonus icons as if you'd played it. You can do this to yourself if you really need to get an Amber or do an ability again, or say you're just not having much luck with this thing because you aren't calling Sanctum very often and you really want to get that draw card and the Amber Pip again. You could purge it. You'll never see it again in that game, but because purging is removal permanently from the game. Now, these are fun, and these are both mutants. So we got 2 Dark Fairies right here. These are just a 2-power minion, no armor, skirmish, so whenever they fight offensively, they don't take any damage in return. But when they fight, they gain 2 amber. So what's wrong with them fighting? The answer is no, nothing. Go fight. Do the 2 damage, get money, win. Capture Pip from Enhancing. So this is just an even better card than the other one just because of that. But this is amazing. If you can get her to stay out for a little while, she's going to do some work for you. Tremble. Each mutant creature gains Skirmish. Now, this is one of those things that's just kind of pointless because, for one, they already have Skirmish. Bulwark could get Skirmish from it, that would be cool. And Bot Bookton is a mutant, so she could get Skirmish. That could be useful. Unfortunately, inside of its own house, it doesn't do any good right now. Mushroom with a View. It's 1 Amber Pip right here, and it's Omni, which means you can use it on any house turn. Heal 1 damage from each friendly creature. This is a fun little card. This is not a great card, but it's a fun little card. Key Frog. Again, not a mutant. When it's destroyed, 2 power, 2 health. When it's destroyed, forge a key at current cost. What most people will do, they'll see it and they'll kill it before you can do it on your turn and forge a key for, not free, because you still have to pay the cost, but before they get a turn to stop you. Cool card, doesn't usually work very well because people realize it. Here's Song of the Wild again, but with a damage pip.
Cephaloist, while you have 4 or more amber, your amber cannot be stolen. This is a really good card, but ironically, we already have Discombobulator, 2 of them, and so your amber cannot be stolen again with this. And it's not bad to have multiple sources of can't be stolen, because stealing is obnoxious. But what we've got here, this is a mutant, so he could actually gain the skirmish, which is useful. But oftentimes, you don't necessarily want to just fight because you need to go reap, but sometimes you have to just kill stuff on the other side. So the last card, and the reason I've kept this deck, it's got an enhanced damage pip, which is hilarious, is the Blossom Drake. It's a 4-power minion. Not very powerful until you start reading this stuff. This is all passives. Blossom Drake gets +1 power for each artifact in play. Each artifact's text box is considered blank, except for traits. Traits being these little words right here, which really those should just be called keywords, not traits, because that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, because that's a keyword. Keyword. Traits is weird. Traits makes more sense when it's like skirmish and assault and hazardous and stuff like that. But anyway, just always a little confusing thing on Keyforge. I've never understood why. But this thing is very fascinating because if we go back through, Blossom Drake gets +1 power, and let's just, for each artifact in play. So even if you could just play your stuff, but they also then lose all their abilities. Like they cannot do anything. We have Mushroom with a View, so there's 1. We've got Eye of Judgment and Amber Heart. There's 3 more. And then on Logos, I don't know. No, there's 1. And I think, honestly, this is the card that drops this deck pretty considerably in many ways. Because there are 5 cards here. So right off the bat, if you had all 5 out and you played him, he would be a 9 power. But the problem is, he loses, like all these cards then lose all of their abilities. They don't do anything that they say that they do. You cannot exalt, ward, and fully heal a friendly creature. They're just there to power him up. And it's a gimmick. It's totally pointless. It's not good. But what I find in it, it's just fun. Because most people haven't seen this card. I don't know why. And it's one of those cards that's just kind of shocking of, wait, what's happening? Yeah, no, there's all your artifacts, they're useless, and he's more powerful because of your artifacts. Thank you. And so unless they use a kill card, they're stuck too. But it's also an interesting thing they realize, wow, he has some good artifacts, and now he can't use them. And so oftentimes I've seen that they just kind of leave it alone and just let it sit over there and kill stuff or end or reap because it's only 1 card and it's getting powerful and it's like a 12, 15 power minion. Cool, but that's all you've got. So what's wrong with this deck? Overall, I think this is probably the card that's got some dis-synergy, if you will. You've got not a lot of creatures in the Logos. Sanctum works just fine for capturing through fighting. But the problem with that is that's not going to get you a really high rating by any chance because of this. Anytime that you try to just capture, all you're doing is delaying the game. That's all you're doing. So capture, I love capture. And it's like my favorite thing about Sanctum. But anytime that you're capturing, you're just holding them at bay for a short time. And all they have to do is a big kill card. And all of a sudden they kill all your Sanctum stuff. They get the, what if you've been fighting for 4 or 5 turns, right? And each of your Gorgonals have 3 or 4 amber. You know, we're talking about 9, 10, 11 amber. They kill it, they put a kill card down, all of a sudden, they get all that amber, they're ready to forge 2 keys in essence almost. And by the next turn after they forge that first key, they'll have enough for that second key. And so that's the reality of Keyforge, is it's a game, especially for the higher rated decks, of speed. And this one is 43.4% because it's just not very fast. It's a gimmicky deck. It's silly, it's goofy, it's trying to slow down your opponent, but if you're not careful, what that does is just ends up giving them stuff in just a little bit, especially if they have a deck that has a kill card or 2 that really answers. And unfortunately, this deck also has some dis-synergy with itself just because, you know, massive damage to yourself possibly as well, depending on how you play. Destroy each creature with the lowest power and each creature with the highest power. More modern stuff, a 6-power minion. That's going to probably target you. Blossom Drake's out and you play that, all of a sudden it's going to hit Blossom Drake. Stuff like that. There's kill cards in here, but that they affect you as well. And then like the Untamed have a kill card that hurts you, except for leaving your lowest powered minion and then their highest powered. Not a great thing, and especially in this deck, if it's built around it right, and we'll keep previewing decks, because I've got some high rated, I've got some low rated, and that's what's fun, is just seeing all these things. And Blossom Drake is a special card to me, and just for the fun of weird, crazy, gimmicky things that it does. So anyway, what's a fun gimmick that you've seen in a card game that just totally messes up the game, and just everybody starts laughing and going, wait, what's going on? And just shocked. You know, what is that game? What's that card? What's it do? Well, I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. Have a great evening, great day, whatever time of day this is, probably the morning. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.